Hi everyone, we're back to LiveCoding MazeRunner, and we ended with this terrible error that we have to fix today. So I'm just going to start my timer so I don't exceed my 20 minutes by much. Right, so this looks like a terrible mistake. Something has gone very wrong, and where do we even start? But this is an excellent opportunity to think about how do we figure out what has gone wrong, because obviously something is very bad. And it seems that when an exception happens, the methods that were called and called each other are listed in reverse order. So this whole problem started with MazeRunner read.main, which called read maze, and that called read char. It called read char in line 23. So we know where the mistake happened. But since this is in a nested for loop, we're not even exactly sure what went wrong. How do we figure that out? Well, we are very lucky because we decided not to hardcode the maze in this program, but to read it from a file. So we can actually go to our assets, make a copy of this maze, I'm going to call it 02, and edit it. And what I'm going to do is, let me just do that. I'm going to create a second maze, which is really simple. I want the second maze to be that. Just those 3 lines. And I'm going to read this maze and see if it's read correctly. 3 height, 3 width. Save. Now you have to be so careful and clever. Maybe making it 3 by 3 is not the best idea, because if, for example, we read the height as the width or the other way around, we wouldn't know. So let's make it 3 by 4, 4 by 3, however you think about it. Right, I'm going to go back to MazeRunner, change this hard-coded input file to maze 2, and as I read the characters, I want to display the character but also the ASCII code. So I'm going to add a space, the ASCII code, which we get by forcing ch to be an integer, and another space. Okay, let's run this. Analyze the results. Okay, so this worked correctly. I mean, it read a hash, ASCII code 35. It read another hash, ASCII code 35. It read a hash, hash, hash. And it's not displaying those end-of-line characters, which would have been 10, because we filtered them out. So this is in fact working correctly. And maybe, maybe the mistake is not in my program at all, but in the maze. Let's just for once and all make sure how long these lines are. I'm going to do that by writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it is 53. Remember, I originally had 53 up here. And it didn't look right, so I made a change, but clearly that change has broken the whole thing. So it's not always that your program contains a mistake. This program is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but the input file was corrupt. The input file had a mistake in it, and that's why it didn't work. Let's save that. Go back to maze, turn it back to 01. And now, of course, it's going to print a lot of stuff. So I'm going to put this in a comment and change it back to just display the character. And run it again. Okay, and this time, look, we get exactly the maze we expected. So at least reading the maze, or this part of reading the maze, is done. And I can carry on and add functionality to my program. And I know that this code works. I don't have to rewrite it. I don't have to, maybe I want to change it to add other elements, but the basics is there. I can work with that. Right. So now I want to write a program that reads the maze and displays a 7x7 grid in standard draw, using standard draw. So I am going to make a new program that I'll call MazeRunner.display. MazeRunner display. Right. It will have a main. It will read the maze, and display maze. We're only going to display a 7x7 sub part of the grid, so I am going to give it display maze coordinates of which 7x7 part it displays. And to start with, I'm going to say display 3, 3. So that'll be a coordinate inside the maze, and it'll display a 7x7 grid around that. So I need a few routines. Neither function has been written, but I'll copy read maze that I now know works from MazeRunner read and copy it in here, and I'll probably have to do a few fixes. I don't want this debugging. May put it back later, but I've got a copy in the other maze, and width, height and maze are not defined because they were global variables. So let's copy them as well. Oh, and wall and space as well. Okay, right, let's do that. So display maze is still missing. Display maze is only going to draw a 7x7 part of the maze on the screen, and it's not going to set the canvas size, so I have to do that somewhere else. So I will do it here. Set canvas size, and I'll stick to my old 500 by 500. And I want display maze to also display them, to show the maze. So I'm going to put a show inside display maze. So let's write display maze. Public static void display maze. The X of the center of the 7x7 grid will display. Okay, right. Now, I want to use fancy graphics for this program, but for now I'm just going to draw a rectangle, let's say blue rectangle for the walls, and I'll draw a white, no, not a white, a grey rectangle for the space. And in the middle of the 7x7 grid will be the player, and I'll do that in green. Okay, so I'm just going to have a for loop that repeats 7 times. But where, yeah, okay, so I'm going to do row 0, row up to 7, row plus plus. And inside I'll have a column, starts at 0, column less than 7, column plus plus. Okay, now what is the character in the maze that I want to display? I'm going to say the object, I'll call it obj, let's write it out. Object is going to be maze. Now, if I put RC, every time I call this routine, it'll display the corner, because R will always start at 0, and C will always start at 0. But that first corner, the first object it draws, has to depend on X and Y. So I could maybe figure out that I should be adding X and Y to C and X. But there is still a small issue, and that is that now X and Y will be the object that it displays first, and I said X and Y should be the center of the 7 by 7. So I'm going to subtract 3 and 3. So if x is 3, as it states here, r starts at 0, so 0 plus 3 minus 3 is 0. So that'll be the corner object that I'm displaying, and I'm going to simply say, I'll make a switch object. And if it's the case that it's a wall, draw blue square and break. And if it's a space, draw a grey square and break. If it's anything else, don't draw anything. Or maybe we should draw something in red. Yeah, let's do red to show that there is an error. Draw a red square. Okay, right. So, and at the end, once this is all done, I'm going to show it. Okay, but now we have a problem. Actually, no, I wasn't going to say problem. I was going to say, hooray! Now all we have to do is fill in these routines. So draw a blue square, but what x and y coordinates? How big should the square be? Well, we know it's blue, so I can at least do set pen color standard draw dot blue. Gray and red. Okay, but now I have to draw a square, and I'm going to keep them separate. So how do we draw a square? Draw filled square at the center coordinates, but this won't be x and y. What is our coordinate system? We didn't even set that. So as a first step, I'm going to say standard draw dot set x scale, and I'm going to use the coordinate system that starts at 0 and goes to 500. And the same for y. And 500. Let's just correct this typo, small s. Right. So 500 divided by 7 is 71 and a little bit. So it's not an even multiple. So really I should be using a multiple of 7 for my canvas size, so that the screenies can neatly divide into 7s. So I'm going to add a square size, and I'm going to make that 50, 60. That'll be the side of a square. Then I know the canvas needs to fit 7 of these squares horizontally and vertically. So this is 7 times square size, and here as well, 7 times square size, and these 500 should also change to square size. Okay, right, so now I know my coordinate system is set up correctly. What is this x coordinate? It's the middle of the square I want to draw. So when r is 0, the y coordinate of the square will be 0. When r is 1, it'll be square size. If r is 2, it'll be 2 times square size. So this y coordinate is simply r, the row, times the square size. But that's the top of the square. I need to add half square size to accommodate for the fact that filled square wants the middle of the coordinates, the square. So I've got to do the same thing for x. And this time it'll be the column. And then right at the end I have to draw the radius of the square, which is half the side length. So it's square size divided by 2. Now this is getting a little out of hand, so I think I'll rename square size to just be size. It's not ideal, but it can work a little bit. And I'm using size divided by 2 so much that I'm going to make it a constant. I call it size2 is size divided by 2. This is all just for convenience. So whenever I have that, I can just replace it with size2, which is really half the size. Half of size. And now I don't need that comment anymore. I can just copy this. Okay, right. And I think this is all I need. I'm working across my 7x7 grid. I calculate the coordinates inside the maze of the object I want to draw. I switch on the object. If it's a wall, I make pen color blue, draw a full square. If it's a space, I make it gray and draw a full square. Otherwise, I make it red. And this should never happen, because everything in the maze is either a wall or a space. Good. Right. So let's run. See if it's worked. Oh, excellent. Is this correct? Is this in fact what my maze should contain? Where is the maze? Oh man. Okay, let's run this again. Displays the maze. Oh, I could have used. Now let's do that. Let's look at maze 1. There we go. And here is the maze I drew. So it seems to be flipped. I mean, this seems to be this, but it's flipped horizontally. So somewhere I made a mistake. I confused an X and a Y coordinate. And the only reason the program hasn't crashed is because this is so small that it didn't reach the side of the maze. But if I tried to draw this corner, I would probably run into problems. Okay, right. So I've got to fix that. Now, where did I make the mistake? R is the row, and I'm using that as the second coordinate. That's Y. So R is like a Y, and C is like an X. And I think I'm using this correctly. And did I do it correctly down here? Height and width. Height and width. I think so. This is very strange. X, Y, and width, height. Okay, right. Now, only a few minutes to go, so I'm not going to fix this now. We'll do that in the next episode. But one thing I could do is just to try to suddenly change these around or change those around. And that would be a mistake. I mean, I can experiment, but just hacking code, seeing if it will work out without really understanding where I made the mistake is really important. Oh, it's the wrong thing to do. It's really important that you don't do that. That would be the wrong thing. Just randomly changing stuff, seeing what will work. So we're not going to do that. We are going to figure out where exactly in this whole scheme that I make my real mistake, and then we'll fix it and everything will work. But that'll happen in the next live coding session. So for now, this is all.